Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today we're breaking down and deep diving Bridesmaids. Such a good movie. I'm really enjoying this deep dive. So this is the third part. If you didn't watch them yet, go back and watch part 1 and 2. Third part picks up with the infamous airplane scene. I'm so excited to get into this one and talk about what all happens. So here we go. I hope you enjoy it. And they get on the plane, and this is, again, I say this all the time, one of my favorite scenes here. So we have Melissa McCarthy sat next to Ben Falcone, and I know you know this, but in case you don't, that's her real life husband. He appears in all of her movies, which I kind of love. If you look somewhere in the movie, he's in there, and they do a lot of work together, which is really cool. Okay, so Annie is known for being afraid of flying. So she's sitting in the back freaking out, sitting next to this random passenger who is talking about having a dream about the plane going down, basically. So Annie's completely freaked out. She keeps sneaking up to try to talk to Lillian, but Helen has sprung for first class tickets for herself and for Lillian while Annie's in the back. Lillian feels guilty about it, and Helen says things like, no, it's good for her to sit back there. There's more of a sense of community back there. Meanwhile, we get to see Becca bonding with Lillian's cousin, Rita, who is, of course, played by Wendi McLendon-Covey. And just a little behind-the-scenes fact on this, Rebel Wilson, Ben Falcone, and Wendi were all in What to Expect When You're Expecting together in 2012. So after this movie came out. But I love this scene so much because we do get to find out a little bit more about Becca, about, she up to this point had seemed like the sweet newlywed with stars in her eyes and just so over the top in love, but it turns out, things aren't going great. She had saved herself till marriage, and now he makes her take a shower each night before they do anything, and sometimes she showers and then he says he's too tired, and she's pretty upset about it. Okay, let's talk about Megan, played by Melissa McCarthy. This role is so funny. She dresses different, acts different, just totally over the top. So in an interview, Melissa McCarthy actually revealed that she based the look and the way she acted, played the part of Megan, in part on Guy Fieri, the host of that show, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Just let that sink in and think about that when you watch this movie. Okay, so the whole thing is Megan is sat next to this guy. Like I said, it's her real-life husband, but sat next to this guy, and she keeps saying, you're the air marshal, aren't you? You're the air marshal. And he said, no, I just want to take a nap. Leave me alone. And then we go to Annie, who's still freaking out. Helen comes back to her and ends up giving her what appears to be a Xanax. Well, she also ends up giving her some alcohol, saying, listen, I'm smaller than you are, and it doesn't affect me, so it won't affect you. Well, you can imagine it's going to affect her hard, right? Okay, so Annie makes her way up to go talk to Lillian some more and Helen, and she is so over the top wasted on this horrible combination of the pill and the alcohol. So she's dancing around and singing. And again, I have to give a shout out to my Patreon member, Lilith, who picked this movie. This is her favorite line here because, so Annie, again, is completely wasted, and Helen's talking about, hey, we should go to a club tonight, and I know the owner. And Annie's like, oh, you do. And it's coming out that she actually can't stand Helen. So, poor Lillian is stuck in the middle and trying to keep the peace. This flight attendant comes up and is telling Annie she has to go back to her seat. She's giving him attitude and walks away, but of course not even for a second. She puts on sunglasses and tries to sneak back up and sit down. And again, one of my favorite scenes, I keep saying that they're all my favorite scenes, but one of my favorite scenes, when she puts on the sunglasses, she comes back up and trying to say, I'm not her. And the flight attendants, yes, you are. Meanwhile, Megan is still, I guess you'd call this flirting with the air marshal. She's following him around. She kicks her leg up in the doorway to try to block him. She's trying to get him to go to the bathroom with her. And he's just saying, no, leave me alone. Oh, I love it. So Annie gets on the speaker and starts saying she's hallucinating. She says, there's a colonial woman on the wing. There's something they're not telling us. So the air marshal has to break his cover and go get her. They chase her around the airplane. It ends up being Melissa McCarthy that tackles her, and they have to lead her away in handcuffs. So they don't even get to go to Vegas. We see them back on a bus on the way back home after this. But an interesting behind-the-scenes fact is in the original script, they actually made it to Vegas. They even had written out scenes and planned to shoot there. However, after Hangover came out, Paul Feig felt that they just did such a great job showing Vegas, anything Bridesmaid would do would pale in comparison. So they decided to change the sequence, and they decided that it'd be funnier if they never actually made it there. So that's how come they ended up filming that crazy stuff that happened on the airplane and then being sent back home in a bus. So Annie goes back home and she finds the police officer and she says, you want to hang out with me? So I just love their chemistry so much. I love him so much. I think he's so cute. And he's very sweet with her. Again, still encouraging her to bake, and he wants to hear about what's going on with her. Now, another interesting thing here, she ends up having a sleepover at his house, and this was a on purpose direction that happens here. So you see that she's completely topless under the blanket. In the scenes where she's with Jon Hamm, she always kept on her bra, and they did that on purpose to show that she was much more comfortable with Chris O'Dowd's character here, or Officer Rhodes, and much more free to be herself. And she even apologizes for sleeping over, because that's something she'd have to do when she'd sleep over at Ted's house. But he is like, oh no, I'm so happy you're here, and couldn't have been sweeter about it. Now, this is the part that drives me crazy. He sets out all this stuff and says, I would like to bake with you. And I want to spend the morning together, and being really sweet. He calls her the expert, and he says, he'd like to do this. She says, I'm sorry you went to all this trouble, but I don't want to. Now, I understand that she'd be upset because her bakery closed, but she's really rude about it, and he's just trying to be sweet, and she says, I don't need you to fix me. She says, last night was a mistake, and I shouldn't have come here. And she leaves, and I hate it so much, but don't worry, it'll get better. She's driving home. She calls Lillian and leaves her a message and says, that was wrong of me, talking about getting them all. I'm sorry. No, she says, what's wrong with me? She feels like her and Lillian are now in kind of an estranged relationship because she keeps basically ruining Lillian's wedding, or the planning of the wedding and all that. And poor Annie is just spiraling. Back at her place, she has a package. Rebel Wilson lets her know this. And it's this insane invitation that Helen has arranged, and it's all Parisian themed. So Helen took Annie's idea and made it something Annie couldn't have afforded to do, right? She did this special thing and stole Annie's idea while doing that. So back at the store, this girl is looking for a Best Friends Forever necklace. And Annie is like, forever? Are you sure about that? Because again, she's miserable in her life, so she seems to be trying to make other people miserable. And she and this girl get into a back and forth like you've never seen. And it culminates in her calling the girl, she said, you little, see you next Tuesday. Well, of course she gets fired. A little behind the scenes trivia is the girl that she calls to see you next Tuesday is Mia Frampton, daughter of Peter Frampton. He gets a voicemail from the police officer who says, don't worry, I won't be bothering you again. Go get those taillights fixed. That's an ongoing thing. She won't get her taillights fixed. He keeps telling her, you've got to get those fixed. Back at her apartment, her roommate says, we'd like a I'd like it if you no longer live with us. We're going to live together alone without you. So you're moving out. So she ends up having to move in with her mom. It's just one bad thing after another, right? She ends up driving by her old restaurant. It's now painted as Cock Baby instead of Cake Baby. So one bad thing after another. She drives up to the Harris estate. So this is where Helen lives. This incredible mansion. She's greeted with pink lemonade, and she's ridden up on a horse. And this is, I guess it's the bridal shower that they're having here. So it's all Paris themed. She runs into Lillian, and things are definitely tense. I love Kristen Wiig's dress here. I just have to point that out. It's this red dress. It may even be a romper. I don't know. It's just so cute on her. Annie made Lillian a collage of all the things they grew up loving and things from back home that they love, and just a very sentimental gift. And Lillian really is touched by it. She seems very moved. And Helen says, "I'm so sorry I didn't give you a present. I was so busy organizing the shower," and gives her a card. So Lillian opens the card, and turns out, Helen not only threw this over-the-top lavish shower, she's taking Lillian to Paris to meet her wedding dress designer and to have a fitting. That was always her dream. So, again, Helen has one-upped Annie, and Annie it's just too much. She just loses her mind. This is her lifelong friend. This new girl comes in and can spend a fortune, so it just makes Annie completely lose her mind. Okay, guys, I'm stopping it here. So the next one, we will pick up what all goes down with Annie and how she loses her mind at this bridal shower. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Do check out Patreon if that's something you're interested in. We're breaking down all the original Sex and the City series over there. Patreon.com/Real Housewives Recaps. Thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.